welcome to class for today. We're going to be starting actually looking at the side kick series because since you're on the side line of your body, it's a little bit more complicated to balance, and it's really helpful to have spend some time doing more specific cueing for the side lying work. So let's go ahead and just start. You can lay down and face the camera and stretch your body out long here. Now, at the hand position, you could have your head supported on your hand with the elbow bent, in which case, if you're doing this, you want to pull back with that lower elbow towards your body to feel that engagement into the armpit, into your oblique abdominal. And some people do it like way up here, which is really difficult because you have very little connection to the ground. You can also go ahead and lay out longer, but what you don't want to do is just kind of like collapse and not feel that you're working at all into that bottom arm. So keep pulling it in slightly so you feel a slight lift of your waist and maybe through part of the armpit and the upper rib cage. The head should be in line with the sacrum and tail, and the legs reach forward and are stacked on a diagonal in front of you. It's also really common here for the waist to drop down and the top leg to seem short. And it's really just because you've adjusted the two pelvic halves and the bottom one is longer than the top one in this position because the waist fell down to the ground. So if you reach out through your top leg to stack your feet, you'll feel there'll be a little space under your waistline. It's like a little mouse could slide through there. They go through really small spaces. If you've ever seen that, it's extraordinary. But you can take your hand on your hip to be sure that the hips are stacked and level and the leg reaches long. The other arm, when you first begin, we start with the hand in front of the chest. You push down into the arm to feel the connection. You're working your triceps, your lats, your external obliques. If this is too much for your neck, you always can lay your head down like so, but still, again, keep reaching out through that top leg to stack your legs and balance out the line of your feet. So we pick the top leg up to begin. The first exercise is called front back or sweeps, and you stretch the leg forward, you pull the heel forward, and when it's all the way forward as far as you can go, you do toe pulses, pulse one, pulse two, point the foot and then take the leg back, and you bring it back, opening the front of the hip and using your glute to pull that top leg behind you. Now the bottom leg will want to lift, don't let that happen, press it into the ground. And again, now as the leg goes forward, try to avoid rounding your back, like curving it. If your hamstrings are tight, you're going to feel like you want to pull yourself into a little shrimp-like curl. Again, don't do that because you're not going to get the stretch you're looking for in the back of your legs. Instead, let's just do the back pulse here. When the leg goes forward, try to reach back through your tail and your sits bone, even if it means that the leg doesn't go that far. So you feel a good, healthy stretch in the back of your thigh where the hamstrings are. And then we point the foot to reach back again, and then flex to go forward. And reach back again here. Now, depending on how tight you are and depending on how organized you are in the body, you're going to find that when the leg goes back, probably most of us are going to want to lean the chest forward. Again, that is not ideal because you've come off of your sideline. And what that means is you've done sort of a plank of your body around your bottom leg, and you're not really getting the stretch we're looking for across the front of this upper hip. So as the leg goes forward, you try not to pull backwards, right? You stay stable right on the side of your body, reach here and do that lengthening through the leg, and then press it back again without leaning forward. The goal is stability through the center of your body, that center line, and just challenge it by the movement of your leg. Now we'll come back to center and lower that top leg down and reach it out. So let's lift the top leg here. And now the next exercise we're doing is rotation, internal and external of the thigh on the hip. So if you take your hand into the crease between your pelvis and your leg, go about 2 inches from the pubic symphysis, the central point, and press your index finger into the crease. If you went in about 2 inches, that would be where your hip socket is. And we're going to rotate the leg internally and externally from that point. So it is helpful to hold the hand there so you really get your body's focus, your mental and physical focus on exactly that point. And as you rotate internally, the knee and the toes going to go down. As you rotate externally, the knee and the toes point up. And it's not because you're moving the foot, you're actually moving the thigh bone on the socket in order to get the rotation of the whole leg as a unit. And with this, you're going to feel a lot of work in your glute and also in the glute medius up at the top of your thigh. So after a few of those, we've done plenty. You externally rotate, you lower the leg down. The next in the series is up and down. So again, your hands can go back here. You point the foot to lift the leg up. You flex at the foot, flex at the ankle to close the heel down and bring heel to heel. Point to let the leg rise and flex to close it on down. We typically do 3 to 5 of each of these. We're picking 3 for today. And push the heel down. Now we reverse the action. So the foot stays flexed. As you lift the leg, you point the foot to bring it down. So even though we're still doing the same up, down with the leg, you're doing a different position of the foot and the ankle. One more. You drag the legs apart and then you reach out and you squeeze them tight. We move next into développé. Here we're doing an external rotation of that upper leg, and you slide the foot in along the bottom leg, pull the foot in as close to your hip as you can, pull the knee up and in towards your shoulder, extend the leg up, flex the foot and reach it out long. It's like you throw it away like you're throwing a baseball across the room. So point, not advised. Pull it in, by the way, and then pull the knee into your chest, lift the foot, flex and reach it out and stretch it down. We'll do that once more. Point, slide the leg in, knee towards the shoulder, leg up in the air, flex and reach it out and down. And now we reverse. You have that flex foot, you lift the straight leg up, you're holding the external rotation. Point the foot, bend the knee, the toe touches the inner thigh, and you slide the leg down. You try to skim along the bottom leg and lengthen both legs. Flex to lift, point bend, and exhale, breathe out deeply. You're pulling the belly in towards the spine and think of shooting the leg longer. You stretch it out with that breath. Lift again, point and bend, and exhale all the way long. Press it here. Now from here, we're lifting the leg hip height, and you're drawing small circles with the leg as a unit, as if your toes were circling around a small orange. So we're just going around here, keeping the legs stacked basically. You want to watch and be sure that you're getting as much action behind your leg as you are in front of the leg. And then we pause, we lengthen, and we reverse the direction, circling. So we go forward and then back. And then complete that last circle and lower the leg down. So that warmed up our hip for the next exercise, which is a bigger circle called rond de jambe. And again, we stretch the leg long. Again, we don't want to be collapsing the waist. We want to stay active in the arms. And you bring the top leg forward in a soft point, relaxed point, bring it up, around, back behind you, and then through center. Trying to hold the body perfectly still, balanced on your sideline, which is like so hard, right? Because when you lay on your back, it's hard enough to keep your body stable when you're moving the length of your leg. Here, you're balanced like on a 2, maybe 3 inch, maybe 4 inch wide strip of your body, and you're expecting yourself to keep everything calm and quiet while you move these legs. And let's do one more. It's particularly hard when you have some tightness in the hip, in the leg muscles, because that will throw you off your balance point. Let's take the leg back, opening the hip, rotate the leg externally to bring it up and around. Then it starts to rotate back towards neutral as you bring it across the other leg in a parallel position. Then you spiral it up, externally rotating. Lift forward and around and reach it back. And trust me when I tell you that my circles did not look like this when I first started Pilates. They were much smaller, and I was much tighter in my hips and in my leg muscles, and I didn't have the same control that I have now. It's just like, practice really makes a difference. And from here, we're going into an exercise called figure 4. So you're going to take that top leg and bend it, bring the foot in front of the other leg, sort of near the hip, and you push the knee open, so you're in external rotation through that upper leg. Now my hand is wrapped around the ankle and I'm pulling it in, and then we're going to take the bottom leg and lift it up and then exhale and lower it down. So the leg rises and then it sinks. It lifts and then it lowers, and we lift again and then take it down. Now we lift the leg again and we do small circles here, circling around and up 1, and then 2, and then 3, trying to draw a perfect circle in the air. Leave it up, lift it a little higher if you can, and now circle around again, reversing the direction. 3 circles here, really working from the upper thigh and not from the foot so much. Lift the leg and then lower it down. We stretch the top leg out on the bottom one, and here we have a little bit of a change. We're going to swing the legs back, So if before the angle of the leg was more like 30 to 45 degrees forward, here it's closer to 10 to 15. So it's almost a straight line from my head to my tail to my heels. And now you get to relax the arm down, stretch it out, and lay your head on the arm. You might want a little pad here. And from this position, the hand is still in front. We're going to lift the top leg up, hip height or slightly higher, to pull the bottom leg up to meet it. And then the bottom leg lowers and it lifts. I think of this like alligator jaw. So I'm leaving the top jaw up in the air, and then the bottom jaw is reaching down into the water, scooping some up, and then closing the jaw here at the top. Now, as I advance the exercise, I could also take both hands overhead and bring all my fingers together, and that would be much more difficult to hold your balance. Good. Now, we're going to leave that top leg up and bring the bottom one to meet it. And now we want to think about the bottom leg doing all the work to do a double leg lower lift on your side. So you push the legs up with the work from the bottom leg and you pull it down. So I'm just letting the top leg be dead weight here. And I'm thinking the bottom leg is like the elevator, lifting the freight up to the penthouse and then bringing it down back to the basement, to the loading dock, right? So of course, rich fantasy life, I'm thinking all the champagne is going up to the penthouse and all the empties are going down for recycling. So we're doing this again, and you're going to feel this in your oblique abdominals, which is great. Let's lift the legs, hold them, and here we do little walks, just letting the feet slide past each other, but not moving the torso. And then you do big, giant sliding leg swings. Notice I'm trying to keep my top leg active, and that's pretty easy. It's much harder to move the bottom leg and try to keep it off the mat. We're going to pull the legs together, lift them both up and lower them down. And then we roll onto the stomach for a grasshopper. So with this exercise, you can either overlap your hands and take it under your forehead, or if it would be better for your low back, you can take both of your hands palms up and under your hip bone crest. So the hip bone crest is between the thumb and the index finger. And what that allows you to do is curl the tail down against the weight of your legs, because now we're lifting the legs from the glutes here. So let's first just pick up the right leg. And as you pick up the leg, you want to think the hip bone crest pushes into the ground, the leg stays straight, and then you lower it down. And then we lift the other one up and then bring that down again. So one leg at a time, working actively to push down with the hips as if the whole pelvic girdle was filled with sand or concrete and like stuck to the floor. That will give you a hip release and a hip extension, and also really make you work the glute muscles here. Now the full grasshopper exercise, the legs are in turnout, and you lift both at the same time, and then you open and close the thighs to clap the heels together because the thighs are pulling apart and together. And then we do several breaths. So you really feel those glutes maybe scream at you a bit. And then we'll lower the legs down and we bring our hands back to sit back in a child's pose. Round your back, stretch it out, curve it. Of course, this only works if your knees are happy with this action. Otherwise, you lay on your back, pull your knees into your chest. Stack your spine from the bottom to the top. And we come over to the other side. So I'm hoping this is helpful. I wanted to give you guys a chance to really experience, like in more detail, what's needed for this exercise, because it is hard and we tend to see a lot of people do it poorly and not get as much benefit out of it as they should. So find that you're on your side seam, stretch that top leg long. You can pull that bottom elbow in. Now we start this with the hand down. At the most advanced levels in Pilates, we do all the whole series with both hands holding the head. So you have less stabilization through your center, and you really have to focus more on your balance. So in either case, hand down or hand up, we lift the leg up, you press the bottom leg into the ground actively, flexing the foot, you bring the leg forward, pulse and pulse 2, point the foot, take it back, and you pulse 1, and then 2. The leg goes forward, double beat. You try to keep the leg the same height off the ground, whether it's going forward or back. I think it looks a little different in the screen, but I'm really imagining that my foot is like sliding on a low glass tabletop, and I'm not going through the glass and I'm not lifting off of it. I'm just skimming right along it the whole time. And I'm really working through my core to be sure that I'm not rocking my chest forward here as the leg goes back, and I'm not falling back with my chest as the leg goes forward. Let's just do one more. And hopefully you're doing the same thing. Bring the leg back to center and we lower it down. For the next part, we lift the leg up. You can take your hand to the hip socket, right in the crease, 2 inches from the pubic symphysis, and rotate the leg internally and externally so it spirals around its own axis. And you get a lot of work in the glute and in the deep 6 rotators underneath that. Again, you're not lowering or lifting the leg. You're not drawing a circle. You're spinning it around its own axis, sort of like the beginning of movement of like a chicken on a rotisserie. And now we're keeping the external rotation, lower the leg for up, down. So we begin, point the foot to lift the leg high, flex the foot and close heel to heel. They kiss together and then you drag them apart. And then you stretch out to squeeze the air out from between the legs and do that again. And go longer, really open the side of your body with this. Now flex and go up and point and push down. Flex to lift. Of course, I'm showing the more advanced arm position. You can be here. One more, reach it out and down, développé. So you bend the knee, you slide the foot in towards the tail, you pull the knee to your armpit, you lift the foot up, you flex, and you reach the leg down and long. So you drag it in, and then extend it up, flex, and push it away. All of this really tones your legs. You're hitting it from every single angle. And now you tap reverse. Go up with the flexed foot, point the foot, bend the knee, skate the leg down the bottom one, try to reach it past the other leg, flex and go up, point, bend, and exhale all the way down again. And one more, point, bend, and exhale all the way down. And now we lift the leg up hip height for small circles. We're circling 8 times approximately. Just draw a tiny circle in the air. Soft point. So my cat Jolie has joined us now. And then we're going to reverse. Go back. You might feel a little burning here. A lot of people, when they first do this, they really feel the weakness that they have in this outer glute medius muscle, because typically it's not trained in many sports or in many forms of exercise. This comes from dance, and they really work on it hard because you need it for one leg balances. So let's bring the leg forward into rond de jambe. So point, bring it forward, circle up, back, around, and through center. And one thing that's helpful, whether my hands are at my head or on the ground, to help really keep my body strong and stable on the mat while I'm challenging it with this big movement of the leg. We're going to do one more in this direction. I want to think of pulling my head and my tail away from each other. So the longer I can make the torso, the longer I can make my legs, the more the connective tissue pulls together to hold you stable. Let's reverse. The leg goes back, you rotate up, around, forward, and through. And I'm trying to even think, I'm using my hand to pull my head away from my shoulders. I'm pulling my shoulders down my back. I'm reaching out through my tail. And then I'm still circling the leg, working here like so. You complete the circle and we're into rond de jambe. No, sorry, that was rond de jambe. We're into the figure 4. So we bend the knee and you take the foot in front of the other leg. And now you hold it, your hand wraps around the leg and you lift the bottom leg up and then down. Inhale to lift it and exhale to lower it. So it rises high, you keep the leg straight. It is easier to think about working from the foot. So try to work from the upper inner thigh to lift the leg, the upper outer thigh to lower it. And then let's lift and hold, and we circle here 3 times, circling 1, and then 2, and then 3, bring it up and reverse your circles, 1, and then 2, and then 3, reach out, reach long, and then lower the leg down. And now we stretch out the top leg on the bottom one. You try to make your angle at your hips less extreme. You can lay your head down. You could have the option of taking your hands, like almost making a basket shape out of your fingertips and your palms. Or a little easier would be to have your hand down here on the mat, because that's going to give you more access into your oblique abdominals from the press of your hand to your triceps, serratus, lat, obliques. So here we take the top leg up hip height or a little higher, And then we press to the ground and we lift the bottom leg up to it and then lower that down. So you're going to lower lift that bottom leg, holding the top leg motionless in the air. And if it's too easy, try to take the leg up higher, ow, and then down again. Well, it didn't really hurt. I was just like, oh, that was harder than I expected. And we'll do one more. And then we lift it and we bring both legs down with the bottom leg doing all of the work. So this is the workhorse. The top leg is now taking its time and just taking a little nap here. So we're going to lift both legs up because of the work in the bottom leg. The bottom leg pushes it out of the way and then gives it a ride down to the mat. The bottom leg is active and the top leg is basically sleeping. And you know how sleepy children, like if they're really sacked out and you pick them up, they just weigh 1,000 pounds. Same thing with this leg. Dead weight. Takes a lot of work to pick it up and a lot of work to bring it down without letting it collapse. So next we're taking the legs up in the air and doing your little walks. The legs slide past each other back and forth. And then your big or giant strides, swinging the legs forward and back. Keep the legs straight. There's no bend in the knees. And you're still working through your center as well as your legs to keep those legs off of the ground. Pull them together, lift them up, and then they go down. And here we'll just sit back in another child's pose. Just stretch out the back. And release the head forward to lengthen the neck also. Stack your spine and come on up. So that's really the basic full psychic series. I thought, depending on how long this took, I thought we would do a little bit of neck and shoulder release today here. And so what I'd like to do with you is from the Franklin method. And the first thing just to sort of know is that when you start tipping your head forward and then moving through your neck, you want to be sure that you're initiating from the right point, right? Because a lot of people, like I'll do this from the side, like when they start to lower their head, they just almost like collapse from the base of their neck. And sometimes people, even we see this in the upper ab curl that we do in Pilates, you'll see people start to bend like down at the rib cage to move their head forward instead of actually moving sequentially through the cervical vertebra. You've got 7 vertebrae in your neck, and they need to all be activated to move correctly. So in order to really get good flexion through the neck or extension through the neck, you need to know that your head rests on top of the first vertebra. It's called the Atlas, just like the mythological figure who held the world up on his shoulders. You would draw a line, like take your fingers and put your index fingers into the ear holes. And if you drew a line straight through there and then opened your mouth and drew a line up and into that imaginary line, that intersection would be the point where your head rests on top of the Atlas, just like a seesaw would rest on top of its support. And so if you start with that, you are in your best posture, easy shoulders. Imagine a butterfly lands on your nose, you look down at it, and you would tip the head slightly forward, and then it flies off, and you look up to follow it up in the air, and your head tips back a little bit like so. So you can just tip here. It's a small movement, because if I go further than that, then I start moving the other vertebra, and now I'm stretching the neck, which is great, right? But it's just a choice as to how much mobility I want to find there. But the first thing to know is you've got to get that tipping of the skull on the cervical spine, and then you can start to move the rest of the cervical spine, each vertebra one after the next. And so when I come up again, we're moving through the neck, the vertebra here, one by one. And the last thing, the eyes go to the horizon. Good. So if you practice that, you'll start to feel that you've got a little bit more release in neck muscles, which, are often chronically tight here. We're all under a lot of stress with COVID, with the election, with trying to figure out what we're doing for holidays, et cetera. Some people going into exams probably soon too. But now let's do something else for that. So if you take your fingers along the base of the skull, this is called the occipital ridge, from behind the ear and go back, you can feel the bony ridge. And then take your fingertips in. As you look up, you'll feel like a little hollow, like a divot here under the skull, and take your fingers into that. And if you press in deeply, you can feel like the back edge of the vertebra. But I want you to just mainly feel the muscles. So as you bring your gaze down, tipping the head on that axis, you can feel, first you'll probably feel part of the vertebra pop into your hand, but then also you can feel that the muscles here are lengthening. And then as you look up, you'll feel them shorten. So as you look down, the muscles here at the back of your neck stretch open. And then as you look up, the muscles in the back of your neck knit together and the divot gets deeper. So we're doing that again. Just tip that easy. Back and forth a few times, up and down a few times. And then when you release your arms down, just sort of notice how your head feels. It might feel a little lighter, a little bit more spacious. And we have one more thing to add to this. So we're going to picture, this comes from my Franklin method training. We're going to picture that as the skull tips in one direction and then in the other, your brain inside is going to be moving in the opposite direction inside of it. So we come closer to the screen. So if this hand is my skull and this hand is the brain, as the skull goes down, I'm going to be rolling the brain back. And then as the skull comes up, the brain rolls forward and up in opposition. So you're thinking the outside and the inside of the head are moving in opposite directions to create a little bit more feeling of space and relaxation through your whole body. Let's say. So you may want to practice it here, taking like one hand to represent your head, the skull itself. I'm going to hold that like in front of my chest. Luckily my shirt is dark so you can see it. And the other hand is going to be underneath, representing the brain. So as the head goes in one direction, the brain moves in the reverse, and then back and forth like so. So they're rotating in opposite directions at the same time. So let's try it with the head. So as you look down, think of the brain rolling back. As you look up, think of the brain rolling forward. It may take a while to get the movement to coordinate with the image. Be patient with yourself while you figure it out. Really try to think of the contents of the skull moving in the opposite direction from what you see the head doing. Just do one more. And then lower the arms down. So with my clients that I see for Pilates and also Franklin method, when they do this, they often report that they feel like the head is floating a little bit away from their shoulders, that the neck is decompressed and elongated, and that there's a feeling of more space and lightness inside their skull. So I hope the same thing for you, because this would be a wonderful thing to be able to reproduce when you're doing Pilates movements, starting to move the head, to move the neck, to move the rest of the spine. In any case, we are done for today. And I hope this was helpful in both learning the side kicks and also maybe releasing a little tension through your neck.